This is CBB Today. I'm Spencer Ostroff, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're doing an AP poll reaction, and as you may know, we do these just about every single week on my channel. If you enjoy these types of videos, please hit that subscribe button. We are currently on the road to 500 subscribers, and we are trying to get there by Selection Sunday. As you may have seen this week in college basketball, we had a lot of moving parts, so without further ado, let's hop into the new #1 team in the country. And coming in at number 1, for the first time all season, we have the Duke Blue Devils, and we all saw them play on Monday against Syracuse. They won 101-64, but the main event was in Washington, D.C. on Saturday when they defeated the Michigan Wolverines 68-63, led by Cam Boozer's 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. Now, I'll be the first one to admit, I was wrong, okay? I thought Michigan was going to win that game. I thought Michigan was going to win by close to double digits. Now, look, I don't care that Michigan didn't shoot the three well. I'm not making an excuse for them. Duke was the better team, and I'm not so sure that if they played 100 times, Michigan would win over 50 of them. Like, I think Duke is legit, and I was wrong. They are rightfully ranked as #1 overall. They control their own destiny by far to be the #1 overall seed in March, which they'll want in Philly. It'll be, or in the East, which will be Philadelphia and then Chicago for the Sweet 16 Elite 8. Granted, they get there. They have Notre Dame coming up, then Virginia, NC State, and North Carolina. Could they lose one of those games? Yeah. Are they going to? Probably not. They'll probably go into the ACC tournament with 2 losses. They'll probably win the ACC tournament because the ACC, although it's better than it's been in years past, it's still not the strongest league at the top, like, you know, how the Big 12 is. So Duke, they're 25-2. I'm assuming they'll finish the regular season at 29-2, and yeah, they'll probably end up being the #1 overall seed in March. Congratulations to Duke, congratulations to their players, and I will say once again, I was wrong. And without further ado, let's now move on to the #2 team in the country. At number 2, we have the Arizona Wildcats, and their stint at number 4 was short-lived. Obviously, they were #1 for about 2 months. This week, they beat BYU at home, and then they went to Houston and got one of the best wins in all of college basketball this season. They defeated the Cougars 73-66. Anthony Delorso, I said prior to the game, they're going to need someone to step up, and a big X factor for them would be Anthony Delorso. The three-point sniper, the guy that, you know, can honestly score at all 3 levels. Is he a great 3-level scorer? No, but he's capable, and he showed it this week. He scored 22 points against BYU. He scored 22 against Houston. Ivan Karchenkov, honestly, I don't know if he's going to be in Tucson next year. I think he might be playing in the NBA. This guy is a great defender. He makes the right plays on offense. If Arizona's going to make a run into March, Ivan Karchenkov will be a big reason why. Now, obviously, there's still no Koa Pete, still no Dwayne Aristode. If Arizona does want to make a run in March, they're probably going to need Koa Pete. They're probably going to need Dwayne Aristode also, because right now, Sidney Gay and Evan Nelson are playing, I'm not going to say big minutes, but they're playing minutes when Tommy Lloyd did not expect them to be playing minutes, if that makes sense. So Koa Pete, I fully expect him to come back, but look, you never know. In this day and age, it's hard to tell. If Koa Pete comes back, I still think Arizona is the favorite to win the national championship. I just think their team is so well built from top to bottom. So Arizona, they moved back up to number 2 after, you know, a little bit of a rough week. It looked like possibly, you know, the wheels were falling off a bit for the Wildcats, but that is not the case. They went to Houston. They got the job done. This week they played Baylor at Waco, and then home at Kansas, or home in Tucson against Kansas on Saturday. So 2 big games, and then to close out the year they have Iowa State in Tucson and then at Colorado. So look, you go 3-1 in those games, that's fine. If you go 4-0, obviously that's amazing. You're probably already locked up for a 1 seed out west after the win at Houston, but look, you want to lock it up for sure, go 4-0. So yeah, Arizona's at number 2, and let's move on to number 3. And at number 3, we have a team that their stint at number 1 was very short-lived. We have the Michigan Wolverines, and I think a lot of people probably saw both of their games this week. They played at Mackey on Tuesday. They defeated Purdue 91-80, and that game was not really as close as the final score showed. Michigan basically won that game, or was leading that game wire to wire. Yeah, Elliot Cadeau had 17 points, 7 assists in that game. McKinney and Kaysen combined for 26 points. And then it was kind of like a tale, you know the saying, a tale of 2 halves? It was a tale of 2 games. So they shot 13 of 23 from 3 against Purdue, and then 6 for 25 from 3 against Duke. Elliot Cadeau did not have his best game against Duke. McKinney didn't have his best game. Honestly, Kaysen didn't play bad. I think Kaysen's minutes are going to be kind of on the uptick as the season grows older and as we are approaching March, but we'll see. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about Michigan if I were a fan. Like I'm not a fan of Michigan, so I honestly don't really care what happens with them. I just want to see a good games, which I saw. Like Michigan versus Duke, that was sick. Like seeing that in February, non-conference game this late in the season, that like what more can you ask for if you're just not a fan of either team and you just want to see a good game? So yeah, Michigan, they have Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, and Michigan State coming up. I think they're going to win all 4 of those games, just like I think Duke is going to win all 4 of their games. Could I see them losing at Illinois? Definitely. If they're going to shoot under 25% from 3, yeah, they could easily lose a game like that. So we'll see what happens. Michigan's at number 3, and we will move on to number 4. If you're still watching this video and you haven't yet subscribed, what are you doing? We are on the road to 500 subscribers, and we are trying to get there by Selection Sunday. We do these AP poll reactions every single Monday, and we have recaps, previews, and breakdowns during the week. So hit that subscribe button and get back to the video. And at number 4, we have the Iowa State Cyclones, who started their week off very hot, dating back to February 14th when they beat Kansas. Then they beat Houston 2 days later at Hilton Coliseum. They probably shouldn't have won that game. They were down basically, I think, like 10 points with 7 minutes left, something like that. They ended up crawling back. Nate Heisey hit a big 3 at the end of the game. Joshua Jefferson had a nice game. BYU, they head to BYU, a Richie Saunders-less BYU team, and they lose a golden opportunity because earlier that day, the NCAA released their top 16 teams for March Madness. Iowa State was the 4th number 1 seed, and then they lose that game, and it's like, okay, what now? Who is it now? Is it Houston? Is it UConn? We don't know, and obviously we're not going to know for a little bit. I think it is a little promising for Iowa State fans that they are ranked 4 in the AP poll. That is just what the media thinks of them, that they are the 4th best team in the country. The only thing that worries me with Iowa State is just how they look away from home, and that is a big deal because obviously March Madness will not be played at the Hilton Coliseum. So we'll see how Iowa State finishes the year. Their road games are at Utah and at Arizona. They will beat Utah. At Arizona, if they can win that game, then I'm right back on the bandwagon with Iowa State that they are capable of winning a national championship. But they just haven't really proved that they can win away from home. They haven't won a game away from home since February 1st, and that was at Kansas State. So, look, we'll see how they finish the year. I presume that they will finish the year strong. I presume they will finish the year 3-1. I think they will beat Utah. They will beat Texas Tech. I think they'll lose to Arizona, and they'll beat Arizona State. So, yeah, Iowa State's at number 4, and let's now move on to number 5. And at number 5, we have a team that I've never been less worried about after losing 2 straight games. It's the Houston Cougars, and Houston has a big game tonight against Kansas. I was saying it to one of my friends. I can't remember the last time I've seen Houston lose 3 straight games, which they are in danger of happening, and then Kansas with Bill Self is 40-0 or something on Big Monday. So it's kind of like the unstoppable force versus immovable object saying. I think Houston I think they get back on track tonight. But look, I said I wasn't worried, and I'm not. I'm not, because the team has a stupid amount of talent. I am a little worried about the defense, just because you know the Houston standard and what you're usually accustomed to with the Houston Cougars. And this year, it's like Kingston Flemings is a great talent on offense, but gets picked on a little bit on defense at times. So that's something to keep an eye on. Houston closes out the year, obviously, at Kansas tonight, then versus Colorado, versus Baylor, and at Oklahoma State. Look, you beat Kansas, you got to go 4-0. You have to. If you lose to Kansas, you got to win versus Colorado, versus Baylor, at Oklahoma State. You have to. Houston is more than fine being on the 2 line in the South, because that means the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 would be in Houston. So they have no problem with that. They would welcome that with open arms. Look, Houston, again, they have 4 losses on the season. 4 losses to, we're talking about Iowa State, Arizona, Tennessee, and Texas Tech. This team, look, has that big win kind of been eluding them a bit? Sure. But is it coming? Is it coming tonight? We'll see, okay? I'm not going to make any predictions, but look, I do think they get the job done. So, yeah, Houston's at number 5, and now let's move on to number 6. Coming in at number 6, we have a team that we've talked about a lot this year. It's the UConn Huskies, and a few months ago, I called them the most overrated team in college basketball. I stuck to it, and they lost to Creighton as 15.5-point underdogs at home. So, look, I don't want to say I don't want to say I was wrong. I think I was just early with that take. Because, look, you can't lose to Creighton at home at this point in the season and be taken seriously. I don't care. I don't think this team is capable of winning a national championship. I think people are going to destroy me for that because Dan Hurley's the coach and blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Like, you stacked them up against Arizona. You stacked them up against Michigan, Duke, even Houston. I don't even think they're like... I don't see them in the same tier, you know? I see them more in, like, the Purdue, the Texas Tech prior to the Toppin injury, like that type of tier. But, look... They play St. John's this week in Stores, or maybe it's in Hartford. I don't know. It's a home game for UConn. You got to win that. You got to win out. You got to win out. Okay? St. John's at home, Seton Hall at home, at Marquette. Win out. Win out, win the Big East tournament. Maybe I'll get back on the bandwagon. But for now, like, I'm so out on the UConn Huskies. Their offense is honestly, it honestly turns me off, and I don't even think their defense is that good. So, yeah. UConn's at number 6, and now let's move on to number 7. And coming in at number 7, and I feel like we haven't talked about this team in the top 10 in a very long time, we have the Florida Gators, and I'm very happy to see them back in the top 10 because this is one of my favorite teams to watch. Obviously, we all know like the front court is unreal with Hall, Condon. Shinyulu is one of the most underrated players in the country. But then Boogie Flan, Xavier Lee. Look, Xavier looks like he's starting to find his stride a little bit, maybe perhaps. Klavchar, nice piece off the bench. Look, this Florida team is capable of going back-to-back. They are. Did I think that in December? No. Because, look, they didn't win the big game in non-conference, but they figured it out. They started to figure it out in January. You know, that Vanderbilt game seemed like a little bit of a turning point when they won at Vandy. And then the Auburn game, they lost to Auburn at home, and I was like, oh, here we go again. But since then, they've been rolling teams. They rolled Bama, they rolled South Carolina, they beat Kentucky, rolled Georgia, rolled A&M. Like, they're beating teams, and they're beating teams by a lot. So they have 4 games left as well. They play at Texas. Versus Arkansas will be a very fun game. Versus Mississippi State, and then they finish out the year at Kentucky in Lexington. So that will be a very intriguing game because Kentucky is probably going to need to win that game to not cement themselves in the tournament, but, you know, to not be on that 11-10 line. So, yeah, Florida's at number 7. I think they could even climb up to number 5 by the end of the season. And, yeah, we will now move on to number 8. And at number 8, we have the Purdue Boilermakers, who didn't have the best week, but they bounced back in a nice way. Now, they got, I don't want to say pummeled by Michigan in their home arena, but the game was not as close as the final score like I previously mentioned. They lost 91-80. Trey Kaufman-Renn had a nice game, which is good to see because obviously this season has been a little bit up and down for him. And then Friday, they destroyed their in-state rival Indiana. They won 93-64. Trey Kaufman-Renn, again, 20 points. So, look, Purdue, have they been a little inconsistent this year? Yeah. Am I going to count them out from, like, being able to make the Final Four? No. Because they have Braden Smith, because they have Trey Kaufman-Renn, because they have Fletcher Loyer. 3 guys that have been there since their freshman years who have played in the national championship. Look, they play Michigan State, Ohio State, Northwestern, and Wisconsin to finish out the year. I think they should win all 4 of those games. With Michigan State and Wisconsin being at Mackey and then Ohio State and Northwestern being the road games, I expect them to win all 4 of those games. I expect them to be a 2 seed in March. Now, I think their absolute bottom is a 3, but I think they're going to be a 2, and I think they can do some damage in March. Now, are they also prone to being an early exit because of their lack of athleticism? Yeah. But am I going to count out Painter, Smith, Loyer, Kaufman-Renn? No. So, look, Purdue comes in at 8. I'm totally fine with them at 8. I wouldn't have minded them staying at 7, but look, it's the AP poll. So, yeah, Purdue comes in at 8, and let's move on to number 9. And we have the most boring team to talk about, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it because, you know, they kind of just handle their business. And have they handled their business all season? No. But it's the Gonzaga Bulldogs. And obviously they lost that game to Portland, and everyone thought the sky was falling. And then they won 5 straight. Graham Ike is putting up 20-plus points in every single game. They played Pacific on Saturday. They beat Pacific. But they were 22.5-point favorites, and they were losing, you know, when the game was like in the 40-point. Like, it was like 40-40 something. They were losing, and I was like, okay, what is going on with this team? But look, they're going to need Braden Huff back. If they want to do anything this year, I think that's pretty obvious. You know, they're gonna get the 3 seed out west. They just will. I think it'll be Purdue as the 2, Gonzaga as the 3, Arizona as the 1. I think that's what it'll end up being. And look, I don't think anyone's going to take them serious if Braden Huff's not healthy. So we're going to have to monitor that. They finished the year with Portland and then at St. Mary's. At St. Mary's will be very, very fun. It always is with those 2 teams, especially when it's at St. Mary's. So, yeah. Gonzaga, look, they're 27-2. It's hard to complain. Their 2 losses are not great because you got destroyed by Michigan, like destroyed, and then you lost to Portland. But it's kind of nitpicky. They're 27-2. So Gonzaga comes in at number 9, and let's move on to number 10. And coming in at number 10, we have another team that's been pretty inconsistent. We have the Illinois Fighting Illini. And I say that because in their last 5 games, they're 2-3. Now, granted, those 3 losses, 2 of them are in overtime. One of them is on a game winner by Donovan Dent. It's not the most worrisome, 2-3 stretch I've ever seen. It's not like they're getting blown out or losing to terrible Big Ten teams. With that being said, March is right around the corner. You have 3 regular season games left, one of them being against Michigan. You probably want to win that game, right? Do I think they're going to win that game? No, because I just haven't seen the consistency, and honestly, their defense is just not very good. You then have Oregon and Maryland. You better win both of those games heading into the Big Ten tournament because they still have their eyes set on a 2 seed. And Illinois probably should have a 2 seed. The way they played in that 13-game stretch after the Nebraska loss, look, we'll see what happens with them. I think this team is capable of making it all the way to the national championship game. But they could also lose in the round of 32 to a team that just, lights it up from 3, and Illinois is not going to defend. So we'll see what happens with Illinois. That'll round out the AP poll top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. We only have a few more of these left before Selection Sunday, so I hope you guys are excited for March Madness. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit that button, hit the like button, and comment what you'd want to see next. We're doing previews, we're doing recaps, we're doing breakdowns, and obviously these AP poll reactions. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. CBB today. Peace.